Bitcoin Liberty Live. We're back again. I am traveling, as you might see in my, what is this called? A hotel Art Deco background.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a Rorschach blot. What do you see in the picture?
Yeah. I see. Let me see. I see. God, I don't know what I see in that. I see a blob. I see very little. Nada.
Let's see.
Nothing. I am not able to discern.
I was trying to imagine. It looked like a couple of cats wrestling or something.
Oh, that's pretty good. All right. Let's unpack that. Let's unpack that, Fritz. What does that mean? Why?
I know. So have you, with the jobs that we've had in common similarly before, did they have you go through a psych test?
Oh, God, dude. That was brutal. You know, what was funny is when I first got the gig, they're like, yeah, we're going to lean on your old background check. It's going to be lightweight. Don't even worry about it. It's going to be fine. And then I showed up and I was just like, these guys ran me through the ringer. I mean, it was not like some lightweight thing. Like they assigned an investigator that had like 25 years with the state police. And that guy was up my wahoo, dude. I mean, like all my friends were like, dude, this guy was like, I was like getting nervous just talking to this guy. Like he was like pushing everything. I was like, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen. So I don't know, but hopefully you didn't tell him I'm some sort of, like lunatic. But the battery of psych test was like enormous, man. It was.
Did they actually show you Rorschach blot stuff?
I didn't get down that path, but there were two standardized, like 500 question type things, and then like a 2-hour interview with a psychiatrist. So it was like, it was a lot, and there was also like some reasoning tests and all kind. I mean, like they put me through the ringer, man. And the medical was no joke. Like the medical for the Department of Corrections was just kind of like, you're basically breathing, All right, we're good.
You can shuffle, so you can.
Yeah, you can shuffle. You'll probably manage. This one was like their blood works, and like, I mean, they got in my business. So
yeah. Between Oregon and Washington and 3 different academies I went through, I guess. But yeah, the physical fitness was no joke. The testing on that, every year I had to pass a certain regimen of physical fitness stuff, which included running a 1.5 miles, which I hate. I can run and I can get better at it as I practice, but I just don't love it. I don't love running.
Right.
But I had to keep my job. Every year I had to run a 1.5 miles plus the sit-ups, the push-ups, all these things. There's a gamut of things. And then so the first time I went through the whole gauntlet of background check, again, full comprehensive background paperwork, self-disclosure stuff. And then they dig into that and they go and interviewing your friends and neighbors and family.
Yeah.
Some investigator. And then and I get through all that and I'm thinking like, oh, good, I'm there. Oh, now they want to do a polygraph.
Yeah.
Which is you've studied the polygraph. There's things about the polygraph, the way the science behind it, and then
zero.
So it's largely convincing you of the conviction that this thing works.
Right.
So just be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
They get you to admit. But anyway, so then so then the psych part. I've had several psych tests for these different jobs, and I saw it transition over years. So like years ago, it was really kind of old school, and they've had long-standing questions they ask about a lot of the things that get a sense of both your honesty and your kind of a spectrum of the things. I mean, it's like it's touching on a lot of things, kind of like your proclivity to be agreeable, and then your ethics, of course. and they'll have questions that are kind of just on the edge where you want to agree, but you're like, where's your line there? But it's just true or false, and you're like, and there's no true or false about it. You're just kind of like, so anyway. But they do that. There's like 1,000 questions, and so they get this profile about where you lean, and then it finally it's the interview. And it's funny, we're having the background check podcast today, but we both shared these funny experiences where, so the old school one, he got out the book of like the Rorschach blots, one after another, he'd show me these things, and it's just like, without thinking too hard about it, just what does it look like? And it's just like, and some of them were like, like this thing. Anyway, and it's like, so what do you see? You know, just first thoughts. And it's like, clouds. But anyway,
I see. Well, this appears to be a Mexican, donkey show. What's up, Johnny?
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, don't think too hard or be too expressive. Like, how quickly do you have? It's almost like your filter test, but how quickly and readily do you have filters at hand that aren't faking? You know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
what was a funny one was one of the questions during the psych interview was, what was it? It was like, do your ABCs backwards from like R or something like that. And I was like, no, Q, wait, okay. So, like I couldn't do it, dude. Like I was all like stumped as hell. And, and I was getting a little flustered. I'm like, man, this is kind of embarrassing. Like I honestly can't pull this off. Like I need to think about this linearly from the front or else I'm lost. And she's like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that was funny. And then just kept going. But that actually became a mark on the thing. It wasn't like said
be dyslexic.
No. The reading was like, oh, client was able to recover from, XYZ without incident. Showed a high degree of emotional maturity and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, what? Oh, so you weren't testing whether or not I knew my ABCs?
It was like, how do you handle something that you can't really do very well?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was sort of illuminating in one regard, but it was also...
Johnny, we're having the Mexican donkey show this morning.
Yeah. You missed all the fun stuff about background checks, dude.
Yeah. And because like I would carry a weapon, and so there was long discussions about how able or willing or interested are you in homicide, or enforcing violence.
Yeah.
And I remember, and when I was totally new to it all, I was so philosophical about it in all these ways that I had thought about, but they wanted to hear that I'd really, really thought about it, like looking at my background and like, so you're from tech and now you're going to be carrying a gun. Have you thought about this? Or like you get caught in a situation and you're not going to be you're going to do your, according to training basically, and not get off on it.
Right.
And anyway, so yeah, no, interesting.
Well, that was one of the things that always struck me. Like I noticed, especially at the DOC, we have armed posts there, and one of them is perimeter patrol and things like that, right? And the tension in that job, especially in the prison service, is something that I think is underappreciated, because you spend an enormous amount of time with these people in population, in direct face-to-face contact, right? And you hear their problems and you see their issues, and and all of it has to be, if you're doing your job well, it has to be done with moderation, with discretion, and with thoughtfulness, right? You can't just be like, man, get out of my face. Or you can't just be like, yeah, do whatever you want, right? You have to strike a balance, and you have to maintain the rules of the institution. You can't just let it go willy-nilly. You can't be bending rules. So you have to find a way to orient everything into a narrow lane where you're taking all these messy problems and fitting them to a rule structure that is very rigid, and you can't deviate from it, but you also have to have enough flexibility that people don't think you're an idiot, right? So navigating that is tough just by itself. But at the other end of the spectrum, at the end of the day, if any one of those people jumps over the fence, your job is to shoot them in the back without even a second thought, right? So you run this gamut of like, I have to be a caregiver, social worker, conflict mediator, to the ultimate terminator, like, oh, you're over the fence, boom.
Yeah.
Right, well, probably shouldn't have tried to do that, and then be able to reconcile that in the same personality. It's not easy. And I think most people orient around the first part, but they never really take into account what that means. Like, oh, that's someone I actually like, and they're doing something that is so forbidden by law that it warrants the death penalty, and I'm going to be the executioner, right? Like, that's a huge leap. And there are people that are just like, I don't care, because they hate these people to begin with, so they have no problem asserting force against them. The broader spectrum of people, though, are people that treat them with kindness and respect, and at least a modicum of care. And those are the people I think are going to struggle, when it comes to that, like, click.
Yeah.
So
it's like, it's like there was a book written by Lieutenant Colonel Grossman, I think it was, but he wrote a book called On Killing, and it was the site, and he had I can't remember what his degree was in, but he was well versed in psychology and the psychology of killing, and it was basically like during wartime, for example, that a lot of people like they just can't pull the trigger, or they won't, and or they'll pretend, and that a lot of people went to war and like weren't even shooting, or just were shooting into the air like to participate, but weren't like in the mode of war. And then others that were really good at it were
a little too good.
you have to manage it, and it made people susceptible to liking it like a game, and then managing that. Like there's people that say they're on the guard post and they do that once and they take their week off, and it's like, are they still okay? Like, can they still do this job? Because it hits you. Yeah. Some people like just can't handle it, and then others were like, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of like, which direction do you kind of gravitate to in terms of how you handle that? And sticking to being grounded and having it in perspective and sticking to that middle path of being like, there were reasons for it. It was awful, but I had to do it and I'm okay.
Yeah.
Versus I can't do this job, or I'm looking for the next one,
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah.
Horrible.
Well, it's actually a fascinating thing, because there was a interview with a guy, Vietnam veteran, I think, who really, really struggled. This is in a book, The Body Keeps the Score. It's a book about trauma and the effects of trauma and things like that. But this guy was really struggling, having a lot of problems with his wife and family and stuff but he was a family man, working guy, middle-class dude, just kind of doing his thing. And he said the hardest thing for him to come to terms with was that he enjoyed it. He really, really loved it. Like, it wasn't just like a passive thing where he's like, oh God, I had to do that because of conditions. He was like, man, that was awesome. I love that. I want to do it again. And for him to reconcile that was highly problematic, because it's just as a social cue, you go like, well, I'm like, what are your hobbies? And you go, well, I like killing people in war, macrame, skiing, and sometimes I like to do a little pickleball on the weekends, right? Like, that doesn't read like a great dating profile, So that's not something it's socially taboo to even be in that frame, right? And then to try and inhabit that while you're also trying to be, all the other things that guy was, which was a caring father and a loving husband and a conscientious worker and all those kind of things, were in stark conflict and were causing him a lot of problems, in terms of emotional regulation, things like that. So yeah, it's a complex wicket, man. But when you start making that a role and a job like that, it gets weird, man. Like, a lot of this stuff can get really, really bizarre when you start thinking about what that's all about. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've actually seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. We were told to read this when I had my job. We studied this book in the academy and we read it, and it was just like, be aware of what your job can be, and that like day to day, it's so like, as a park ranger, for example, it's like 99% of your job is, it's customer service and you deal with some unhappy campers, but it's normal human interaction and a lot of pro-social positive stuff. And then we would have events throughout the state every year that involved like bad uses of force or things that had to happen. And, reconciling that wasn't straightforward. Lieutenant Grossman, he studied things out of World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and all these things. And the psychology done on people, that what they were like going into the service, and then when they came out, like some of them, it's like we made some psychopaths here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They came out of that just like messed up. Either like he just said proportionally, there's a number of people out on combat that kind of became like psychopath.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're like itching to get them Nazis, and on the other hand, a lot of people came back, of course the PTSD and the like can't think about it stuff.
Right.
Anyway,
which is understandable. But I mean, it looks like our title for today's show is Perpetual War for Perpetual Peace. So yeah. So we seem to be oriented on the right topic already.
Yeah, talking about war, it's like I don't know how any of this gets backed up or repaired, but it seems like it was like kind of like 2 weeks to stop the spread. And then Trump was saying, oh, we need another 3 or 4 weeks. And I feel like I've seen this movie before. This is forever. I don't know.
I mean, it depends on a lot of, it's dynamic and it changes, but yeah, but I get what you're saying 100%. Like, oh, this sounds strikingly familiar to other narratives that we've heard in the past. Like, George Bush on an aircraft carrier going, victory.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, mission accomplished, right? And then 10 years later, it's like, oh, is the mission accomplished yet? No. Actually, it's way worse than when we got there. So
it was just the next step in the endless greater empire.
Yeah, well, I mean, it but these are like political levers at the end of the day, right? It's not like people frame it as like, national endeavors or we're doing this or we're trying to stop that or whatever. But that's all like front-facing language. It's got nothing to do with the institutional reality underneath, which is like, well, if we do this, then we can push this. And if that gets pushed, then maybe we can get this concession, maybe this, and we can send this message while we're also doing XYZ. And we can, so there's like these like interlinked chains of, incentives and cautions and rules and all these things all swirling around all at once, but it's all power projection, power play. But it's all like Game of Thrones kind of stuff, right? Either you play the game or you die. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
So, and this is how that game gets played,
Yeah, in some sense, when you think, I think about it like from things you've been writing, your more recent writings, but like the Tournament of Kings idea, where it's sort of like the cost. We're still in this Game of Thrones Empire game where it's like the cost to exist still remains projection of force and war and willingness to do so and funding that. Like we're not out of that yet. There was actually a book written called Perpetual War for Perpetual Peace about the duplicity of American foreign policy leading up to the Second World War. But basically it's like I haven't read this book, but I remember hearing about it when we were in the Desert Storm, Desert Shield stuff. It came up, and the whole idea that like wars are like sold with like some sort of particular mission or vision, or we're going to do this for a reason, and it's just and right, and we're on the good side. But it never is just like that and done. It's just a steady evolution towards more of traction in a broader game that just doesn't. It's not like, oh, we finished that, we're done, and now we're done. It's just sort of more of the more. I don't know. It's yeah.
Well, that's the thing is people like to think of things as bounded, right? Like they go, history has boundaries. This is this boundary of history. This is this boundary. This is this segment. This is this segment. This, and they try and apply that to life stages, to generations, all this kind of stuff. It's a very, I think, I don't know, a very common idea for humans to want to categorize and bucket things, right? And they go, well, this belongs in this bucket, this belongs, because it helps make sense of a complex world. So it's understandable as an impulse. The problem is people start applying it to systems, and you go, well, you can't really like bundle. Like you can't say, well, like a laptop works because of this bundle and then this bundle interacts with this. It's like, no, it's a system, right? Like all these things kind of work together. And if one is askew, nothing works. But if everything's in coherence, it all works. But it's not like you can separate it out to its component parts and go, this is the thing and this is the thing. It's like, so when it comes to an approach like war, they go, okay, we're going to go to war. We got an objective. Once the objective is met, then war is over. And you go, well, but that's not how a fight works, right? Like, I'm sure you've never had an argument with your wife that started with like, here's our objective. We're going to settle this particular problem. And then when this is over, we can stop arguing, right? Like, that's not how that works. It's just, incoherent to put it in a little tight frame like that. But if you expand it out to like, this nation is going to do XYZ things to this nation, it's like, wow. So you're incorporating like 330 million people as a theoretical construct versus another, however many 40 or 50 million people in another theoretical construct. 99.99% of them are not involved in this conflict at all. So we're really talking about a conflict between like a couple 100,000 people here versus a couple 100,000 people over here. And even those people aren't really directly involved in it. There's like a handful of decision makers over here that are battling with a handful of decision makers over here. So you go, what's the objective? Go, well, we're going to do XYZ things. This country is going to do XYZ things to this country. It's like, well, what's really happening is this 10 or 12 people over here are trying to influence the opinions of 10 or 12 people over here. And that's it. That's the entire bounded conflict. The fact that it manifests as a bunch of people that are unrelated to that conversation getting involved in, launching nukes and, flinging missiles around and all that kind of stuff is almost secondary to the core issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think what's weird about this current endless conflict is like, we're trying to decipher what it is exactly that is the mission or why it and how it started now. Like we're being told Iran's a threat, but it's sort of like, okay, but I thought we dealt with that, some months ago, but it wasn't quite done. But then you're in the middle of some peace talks or negotiations about it. And there seemed to be like some traction about conversation happening, but now we're in it. And I think people are like, what is the reason, or what we don't have that story. I mean, fake as it would be, perhaps we still don't really have like the story of why.
Right.
So a lot of people are just kind of going like, we can imagine it like, okay, nukes and Iran threatening things, and that it's just kind of this latent risk that wasn't getting better. And yet here we are. And so you're trying to make it make sense. And a lot of people, and including myself, it's kind of like, what is going on here?
Right.
Like there's something more to this, and yet we're not being really told what it is.
Well, that's the bigger thing. And it actually kind of, we'll never get the real details exactly. And even this sales pitch is pretty weak, right? Like you just pointed out, Fritz, that their sales pitch is just like reasons, boop. It's like there was no like
Iran to be mad at us or attack us, do you? It's like, well,
like there was, like those reasons that they predicated this on have been there for the last 40 years. So you go, oh, so now we shifted. It's literally like you're just sitting there and you've been having a low simmering dispute with your neighbor, and then just one day you walk out and blow them away. And you're just like, whoa, what happened there? I thought you guys were arguing about your fence. Oh, we were, but reasons. So same reasons that have been going on. I just decided to end that problem right now.
Yeah. Now definitely have an entire section of the world all really mad at us. So,
well, I mean, people have been mad at us for a long time, and yet, for all that public posturing, they're part of the system too. So you just kind of go like, if not us, who then, right? Because someone's going to come and do it. It's not like you go like, oh, well, if the United States would just stop being a bully, everyone would just get along. It's like, you sure about that? I don't know. Like, there is a certain, idea to like, there is an order here that is predicated on some pretty impressive force projection capabilities from the United States, right? So, and, some pretty hegemonic dollar positioning powers that come from that.
And apparently Iran's showing some capabilities we weren't entirely expecting, some tech and some strategy and ability to, and readiness, willingness to fight.
Yeah.
Have you seen, go ahead.
No, go. I want to hear what you said.
Well, this is kind of a change in topic, but have you seen the conspiracies, conversations around Bibi Netanyahu, like being not alive right now, or,
I could care less. Like
it's weird. It's really weird because I think people who want to know, or you could offer up some proof, but all the videos coming out with him are just kind of weird.
Well, I mean, you could have said the same about Biden, and that's part of the problem of the information age we're in right now. Is like information density is high, information quality has vaporized, right? Like it is nearly impossible to discern good information. And there is no reliable source anymore, right? So every human being on planet Earth right now is very much reliant on either authority that they trust, which is unreliable, their own information silo, which is unreliable, an LLM, which is absolutely unreliable, or traditional media sources, which are unreliable. So when you are thrust into that kind of information vacuum, it's problematic because it opens avenues to all kinds of wonkiness. Like, and this wonkiness is not like unpossible, right? Like, is that guy been replaced by a mannequin or some like thing with a rubber mask that is now, geared so he can publicly plausibly passes this? Meanwhile, he's tied up in a basement somewhere and they're zapping his his nose with a cattle prod or something. You go, yeah, that's possible. Like, that's not something where you go, that's pure science fiction, that could never happen. That's not aliens from Mars. That's like, yeah, that's a very viable technology right now. Like when they had Biden, and like Biden was like, one day he's like, he can barely walk across the stage, and the next day he's like bounding up the stairs and like standing firm, and you're gonna go,
and tall.
yeah. And he gained 3 inches in height. You go, is that wait a minute, so it leaves a lot of room for like, I bet you they're doing, and the problem that invokes is problematic in all information systems, where you can take a little bit and then you can put it together and then you draw outsized conclusions from it, right? And that's in my book right now. Like that manuscript, I've been trying to fix a lot of those problems because I take limited information and I draw outsized conclusions. And that's like, that's a problem. Like, it's fine if I'm writing some little polemic that I'm just kind of putting out myself, but it's never going to get through a peer review that way. So I'm like, oh crud, I wish I would have done this more cautiously, more carefully, more thoughtfully when I first started, rather than now having to rewind and be like, oh, yeah, can't say that. That's no good. That's no good.
Yeah.
This evidence doesn't support that. I mean, you can kind of get to here with that, but you can't really go there with that. And so that's what that whole rewrite process has been about. And there's still like, it's just packed through and through. So it's a real pain in the ass to kind of unwind it.
Yeah.
But that's what Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. There was one video. It was just like, what in the heck is this?
But
other guy?
Yeah. But even that, you go like, how, if someone is so sophisticated, they feel like they can pull that off, why wouldn't they just make it so it's seamless? Like, why would they just leave some glaring artifact like that just laying around? Like, oh, you mean the regular Biden replacement isn't available today? Just grab Tom. Tom like a foot taller. Yeah, no one will care. Don't even worry. It's not a big deal. So what? Don't worry. Are they that cavalier about it, or is it this all a mistake, or like?
Maybe it's like the craft. They've got the craft down really, really well, and it's still, they're doing their best, and you can't do it perfectly. Like it's like no one is seeing BB just at events with other people that is confirmed, and it's like no, he's around, he's doing stuff. Instead, we get a video and another video where he's convincing people he's alive with 5 fingers. There was one that he was just making a speech or whatever. They released it like, here he is giving a speech. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, it looks totally real. And then someone zoomed in on, as he's talking with his hands and he puts his hands down, and they zoomed in on his clothing. And there was a clear AI artifact where his clothing just sort of like grows forward to fill in space gap stuff. And it's like, this is freaking AI.
Maybe.
It's AI.
Well, but that could also be transmission artifacts. That can be video compression artifacts. That could be like, there's like a million other explanations besides. That's what I'm talking about, is you can take that little sliver and go, aha, this means it's AI. And it's like, oh, you have enough information to know that the fidelity of the video is in question. You have enough information to know that some artifact is visible in the reproduction of the video. You do not have enough information to draw a conclusion from that, right? So
I know.
It's kind of like, hey, Tom's got a kind of a big lumpy forehead. Murderers have a big lumpy forehead. Tom must be a murderer, right? That's the sort of inferential leap that is happening when people do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact from working in video compression and video transmission fields professionally for 15 years, I go, that kind of thing can absolutely show up from video artifacting. Doesn't mean it's not AI, but it doesn't mean it is AI, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I know. When I saw it, I'm like, I've seen that other times in AI where stuff kind of grows forward to make the next frame that it's trying to get to, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
it's so weird. But yeah, without jumping to conclusions, we're just in this really odd fog of war, fog of reality. And then Johnny mentions it. There's kind of the theory or idea that people have come to, where like the owners have to sort of wink, show us that about what they're doing, like
Right.
tell us that we're doing this, and that people still won't believe it and willingly walk right into the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
I don't know. It gets weird, but
Well, it gets into like proving a negative, right? Like prove this isn't happening. And you go, you can't, like, that's impossible. You can never prove a negative, right? It's just like prove you're not, whatever, prove you're not, having an affair. You go, you can never prove you're not doing it, right? Someone can prove you are doing it, or they can get a pretty close approximation that it is happening, but someone cannot just come along and say, prove you're not doing this. It's like, here's all the reasons. They go, well, what about all these reasons where you could be doing it? It's like, okay, that's fair. But I'm not doing all these reasons because of this. Oh, well, what about these reasons? I mean, it's like, it's endless. You can endlessly go down, like, prove this person isn't, whatever, right? So, or prove this isn't happening.
I had a interesting just yesterday, literally at work. I shouldn't go into too much detail, but so sort of like, we have a new case, and we supervise sex offenders, and yes, we may be on the ranch, but we're getting farmed, but smart farm animals stack their Bitcoin.
Yeah, stack some fats.
Now this is not for the good of anything. It's just sort of how humans think about things in the world that are bad and trying to make sense of it. So we get a new case, another new case where, yes, there's sex offenders in the world. Yes, some of them are really, the cases are quite disgusting, and we want none of it to ever exist anywhere, ever. And we get a new case, and we're looking at it, and it's like, oh, and then we see the person. So whether it's a mugshot or they come in, and you're profiling, people who fit the profile, or someone walks in who's new, and you're almost imagining like, oh, what
I know what we got here.
Totally stupidly, based on what they look like, I wonder what their background in crime is.
Yeah.
And it's easy for people to kind of stereotype what sex offenders look like.
Yeah.
And so, you see a new guy, and it's like, sex offender. Sure enough. And anyway,
so the second they walk in the door, you're just like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean,
it looks like came out of the closet or the basement. Anyway, so we had that bias confirmed for us yesterday again, but it's like, oh, that's morbidly funny, but yep, he's a sex offender. Yeah. So okay, so then we started talking about these old trainings. They've been debunked for reasons you described, but there was science done on, here's all these people that like legitimately confirmed, we know they did these kinds of crimes, sex offender crimes.
Right.
And then there were studies done on not just their upbringing and past experiences, but physical features. Eugenics type stuff comes up into this, where okay, so there was all this science done on people who have, eyes that are so narrow, or heads that are so shaped, or all these things that they're just basically they're looking for any kind of correlations in how people are in ways that you could profile and know things about. Okay, well, so this group of people confirmed, we have a bucket of this type of person, and they have features that correlate to these things. And then so then they have training on that, like it's somehow useful, which it kind of wasn't, and also is disprovable. But people would like reverse that, where, okay, this correlation this way then kind of correlates some way to this people. People would reverse that and then say, oh, people generally who have features like that could be sex offenders.
Right.
And it's like, just like, it doesn't work both ways.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
But
that is, oddly enough, that was like that theory. I can't remember the author of that theory, but he had like diagrams and pictures of people like with lumpy heads and stuff like that. And like they were actually taking measurements of like skull dimensions and stuff like that.
right.
And this was passed around. This is part of the problem with a lot of like history books, political science books, economics books, all that kind of thing. That all those fields were born in the age of information, which was like the late 1800s, right? And the scientific revolution, which was like the late 1800s. So people started subjecting things. That's where like that Whiggish history comes from. And like they go, well, here's all these logical conclusions that we can draw from this assembly of evidence. You see, right? And it was spoken in a very high register, and it was put forth in very plausible terms, and it was argued very forcefully, and it became accepted reason, right? So it's like, oh yeah, well, we have a typology of, but Freud and all that kind of, like, they're all guilty of this, right? And yet that underpins a lot of modern scholarship around all kinds of stuff. Criminology, that was my particular field of study at the LSE. And that was, it was one of the things. It's kind of like the way the historians have to get rid of the Whiggish label, because they've had to fight that for 50 years. Just like, okay, this is all wrong and broken. But our discipline is still worthwhile, right? Is kind of what that whole exercise was. Same thing happened with criminology. They had to unpack all of that stuff, get all of that. Like, they're like, nope. We can't be looking at any of this. This is all terrible. Our field still matters, right? The problem with criminology is it's actually a little bit worse, because it's a self-sealing description. You go, what is criminology? Well, it's the study of crime. What's crime? Well, crime is a thing that we create out of thin air based on things. Oh, so it's not a stable object of observation or testing? No, not at all. It just shifts with the tides. Like, one year this can be a crime, next year it can be totally fine. It's all based on morality and this like slippery slope of all kinds of entangled things. But that's our object of study. So you're just studying, like, you're like looking at a blob of like God knows what, and in no possible way to put it in a coherent frame, and that's your object of study. That's the name of your field. Yes, that's what we do. So it's like, oh God, dude. So it's a mess.
Yeah. So yeah,
no, that's very clear indication of peeping Tom status, or someone call the authorities.
yeah. If you've got a certain round chin with a beard and narrow eyes, and you do like to creep around at night and look into windows. You may be be.
Well, I mean, that's like how guys like Ted Bundy get along for so long, because they're charming and they're good looking, and people don't associate him with.
He didn't fit the other than socially, he did for sure. The way he thought, like egomaniacal types, narcissist stuff.
Yeah,
but he just was like a charming, normal, nice business guy.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly charming, and. So that's problematic, right? But there was a great interview with Charles Manson. It's kind of a semi-famous clip, because he's sitting there and I don't know the guy, obviously. I never met him, never talked to him or anything like that. But if you watch his interviews, he's leaning into all kinds of crazy like ideas and just sort of leaning into media narratives about him and stuff like that. But there's one little moment where someone said, who are you really? What is, what's driving all this? Or just trying to like pierce through and just cut through the nonsense of Charles Manson. And he said, I'm nobody. I'm literally nobody. I'm what do you say? I'm a straight razor in a hobo's pocket or something like that. I mean, it's just like, and when you sort of
psychopathy,
when you strip away all the artifice that got assigned to the guy, and then you kind of just look at like, what are we really looking at here? Is this like some mastermind of evil and this and that? No, it's just some dirtbag that got elevated because something, because of things. And the thing is he didn't actually participate in any of that stuff. He just convinced others to do it, right? And so, but the amount of like social mythology that got wrapped up around that guy, when you really think about it, is like, if you just stripped it all away, if that guy was just walking down the street, like, what would your opinion of that guy be? Well, if he was dressed like a plumber, you'd go, yeah, I guess. Like, you wouldn't even think twice, right? Like, there's nothing that's just emanating from him. There's no wild eyes. There's no, I mean, later on he had like but a lot of that was media stuff. He's talking to the media. It's like, yeah, okay, and he just says some crazy stuff. Got him a lot of attention, kept him out of the chair for a long time, and but got books made him famous. But at the end of the day, he's just sort of like an unremarkable human being, right? And kind of the same thing with Ted Bundy is like, aside from the fact that he did monstrous stuff, he was pretty pedestrian kind of guy. But all of these guys that are prolific and getting away with this stuff are people that don't necessarily fit the pre-described thing, which leads to another possibility. Like when you see those people coming in the office, or when I would meet some of these offenders coming into the prison, you go, yep, you look exactly like that crime. Also kind of leads to the idea, like if you're participating in that, the likelihood of that becoming discovered goes way up because people are really focused on you just because of the way you look, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if you're walking around and you're slinking around and you act like what a serial killer might act like, I don't know, chances are good people are going to kind of focus in on you, catch you a little sooner. But if you're just like the Green River guy who is just like, oh, I'm a carpenter, you know, and he just goes to work and he carpents and he does his little thing, and then his hobby is something that's dark and disturbing, it's a lot easier for that guy to just kind of blend through society for 50 years and no one will ever notice, because they're on the lookout for creepy looking. But creepy looking only just happens to correlate once in a while with the people that are actually doing it, right? So it's you end up making your own typology based on like, we caught some of these people, that's what they look like, that's what they must all look like. And then you just miss all the, you know, like glaring examples all around you that you might not even notice, you know what I mean?
Yeah, hard to catch the ones that blend right in. And, you know, they go to work, they come home, they make dinner, they walk the dog, they watch some TV, and they go out and they murder a hooker. You know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you see that in the interviews. Oh, geez, I never would have thought Tom's always been a great neighbor. Let me borrow his mower.
He's
I
quiet,
never would have thought that his
you know,
basement was full of carcasses. Golly
he's
gee.
our cat when we were out of town. And yeah.
You know,
There
so
is this. Now, going down rabbit trail here, there is this book called, did you ever hear of this? Chaos, with the CIA, MK Ultra, weird stuff going on in the 60s where, you know, documented and released information about what the CIA was doing with LSD and stuff, and in San Francisco and elsewhere. But there's interesting ideas around during the 60s. I mean, you could say, okay, there was COINTELPRO to, you know, get agents embedded into protest movements and all that. And layers on top of that, there's these ideas around literal use of drugs and grooming and just sort of almost like experiments to see what might happen if, you know, so I don't know. It's crazy to think about. So, origin stories.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you know, as we're all circling around all this kind of stuff, it's like there's, I think what we're kind of clustering around in this particular episode of Bitcoin Liberty Live is the problem of information and how we coordinate information and, you know, unpack information. And it's kind of a similar thing, right? Like you can see an institutional narrative that has institutional incentives behind it. And then you can see there's a reality under there somewhere, but it's really, really hard to pin down what that reality is. So you can see recurring tendencies. You can see the recurring tendency in the portrayal of information, the shaping of information. You can see a recurring tendency in information being not quite as secure as the display. And then there's this huge vacuum of like what that really means, right? So you end up with like a weird pipe where it starts off with like, this is curated, this is suspect, the possibilities are endless, you know? So, and that creates a lot of problems because like with Charlie Manson, for instance, you've got, this is the narrative around him that's been shaped and curated and fostered and promoted and, you know, leaned into and steered away from. And then there's the reality of it, you know, where you kind of go, this doesn't necessarily fit any of this well. This is all something that is incentivized and makes sense to a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. It sells a lot of books. It sells a lot of newspapers. It gets a lot of viewers on TV. It helps Charlie Manson in a lot of ways. There's all these people that benefit from this. Psychiatrists and psychologists can write books about it. I mean, there's like this huge infrastructure that's incentivized towards maintaining that narrative. Then you look at the reality and you kind of go, well, what are we really looking at here? I mean, if we strip all this away, what's the actual object of study? And you go, well, it's this kind of like unremarkable guy that was sort of like a little overreaching in what he thought he was capable of, and like had big ideas about things, and then found a niche that kind of propelled him to a place. But that can describe like 3/4 of the people you come across in the world. People who have high ambitions. I'm going to be an author. I just started a book. I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be the manager next week. I'm going to be the supervisor. You know, their ambition may outstrip their actual ability, and then they're trying to do things to get towards that, right? Some of them stumble into things and end up doing stuff, right? But then you go, well, what's the reality? What does this mean in a big picture? You go, well, that's the hard part, because you can see that there's a conflict, but you can't ever really draw a firm conclusion from that conflict. So, and that's whether it's Bitcoiners and the monetary system, or it's 9/11 conspiracy people, or it's, you know, people talking about war and war politics, or international law, any of it. All of these things suffer from that same thing. There's an institutional narrative that is influenced by institutional incentives, and there is a reality under there that is very clearly doesn't ever neatly line up with the narrative. But what that means is like that's the really, really tricky part. And I think if people can stop here and go, okay, I know that most of this is not quite right, so I don't want to rely on this, but I don't want to switch that for reliance on something that's just as murky, right? Is kind of what I'm getting at. And I make the mistake myself. I think everybody does make that mistake, because it's comforting to see the tension, notice the difference, and then resolve it, rather than see the tension, notice there's a difference, and just sit with like, I might not ever get a full, complete picture of what that really means. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And at the heart of it, the angst we feel, for me, it often...
Oh, sorry, I was just laughing at red paint chips and amazing forensic science, because it's so spot on. It's like such a perfect...
Yeah. You know, my wife and I have watched our share of forensic files, and those are the ones they caught. But man, it takes a lot of science and effort to like connect the dots and then know for sure, you know, as best you can. And how many that those efforts are made, but they can't figure it out. I mean, how many unsolved cases are kind of lingering? They're like, we just couldn't figure this one out. Meanwhile, that person, wherever they are somewhere, we have someone like that, you know, fled and don't know what to do about it. He's probably not in our state, but he's dangerous. Like, what are you going to do? Like, we don't have any paint chips on this guy. So, but it often, you know, our seeking for this meaning, it's driven by the general sense, or this angst sometimes about, in my mind, coming back to a lot of our themes of a sovereign and an extractive state that goes out and does these things like quietly, covertly, or right in your face, kind of like, what are you going to do about it? Aren't you on our team? Like, and so it's just like, you want to be like, I'm out. So how do you get out and stop participating, increase friction, or walk away? It made me, where was it? Let me bring up, there was something I got really excited about that I learned about recently. So have you heard of this Bolts, bolts.exchange? They integrated, they do atomic swaps. And so from Bitcoin, Liquid, Rootstock, or Lightning, you can move it to, let's see, I guess maybe it's beta. I think it's their beta version. They have you can now also do USDT, but in my mind, so instead of having to like mix and make a lot of effort to like obfuscate things about it, you can just basically transfer across a gap to get, like, if you had KYC stuff over to non-KYC. Beta.bolts.exchange. You can do Lightning, Bitcoin, Liquid, Rootstock, Arbitrum, or USDT, which you can pick your chain on USDT. But this would allow for people to like move their property between chains, and like on Liquid, for example, with Liquid, those transactions can be quite confidential. So anyway, this was just announced like earlier this week. And
yeah, I don't know anything about it. So everything I'm about to say is highly loaded and just rooted in just deep suspicion of things in general.
mm-hmm.
And this looks very similar to other bridge exchange swap ideas that have been implemented and proved very, very, very vulnerable to logical failures. And there was a famous bridge incident, but I think just about every one of these crypto bridges has been affected or attacked because the surface area for that sort of attack is enormous, and it's really hard to figure out what the failure mode might be, right? And as soon as someone figures out a way to like pin one thing, make it seem like it's been unlocked, and then unlock the other thing, and then unlock this, and then introduce this little error that makes this thing unlock, and then all of a sudden now I can take 300 million out of the exchange, right? It's like, or you can start siphoning value back to you, or you can freeze assets and get someone else's assets. And you can set this up in a chain reaction kind of thing where people can make off, and there have been hacks where people have gotten away with, $100,000 worth of crypto, garbage, all the way up to like hundreds of millions of dollars of funds just zip, gone, right? And so when I see these bridging technologies, I'm always a little dubious, because if you really want to, if you're talking about obscuring transactional flows and things like that, like you're treading on really, really shaky ground to begin with, especially with Bitcoin, because it's public chain, it's publicly auditable, and and especially if you're acquiring through KYC means, it's like, it's, I think, probably just as effective, probably more effective to just go transfer to a wallet under your control somewhere and then go call the cops and say you got scammed, rather than trying to mix it. Because what you're introducing with one is you go, I'm trying to obscure the trail of this thing. The other one is you're going, I lost it. Now, neither one is going to look real good if you're being audited or someone is trying to press you for it or anything like that. Like, both are functionally doing the same thing. But the difference being, like, one, they can just nail you for trying to obscure, right? You go, oh, you're clearly trying to
categorically, you did this, so we're just going to flag that because that activity we just consider, since we can see it, we should consider it. So yeah.
So if you go like, oh, I was doing swaps for reasons, and people go, okay, well, what was the reason, right? Like, it still gives you a trail. It goes, well, the Bitcoin went from here to this thing, this alternate function. What are the stated functions of this thing? Well, the stated functions are to do atomic swaps to other chains. What's the rationale behind it? Well, here's all their public statements about it. Oh, so this is a way to obscure the origin and beneficial ownership and control of an asset. Well, yeah, if you look at it that way, yes. Oh, okay, so this looks like money laundering to me. Oh, well, it could be. That's not what we intended, even though that's all the things we've said publicly. Like, we made all these statements that make it sound like that's what we're doing, but that's not what we're really doing when we're faced with prosecution, or when a user is faced with prosecution. Then we're going to go back to our narrative, and then you're already in trouble. You see what I'm saying? Versus if you just do a very straightforward transaction, and then they go, hey, where's your Bitcoin? And you go, I don't have any. And they go, well, it looks like right here, you transferred here to here. You go, yeah, I don't control that wallet. I screwed up. I fat fingered that. I have been struggling mightily to get my funds back. I called the police. I called forensic investigators. I called all kinds of people to see if there's any way I could get this funds back, and I can't. They're just gone, which is very disappointing to me because that was represented a substantial portion of my net worth. I'm very sad. I tweeted all about how I fat fingered this on Twitter over and over and over again. Like, golly gee, what a dum-dum I am. I can't believe I let that hacker get into my computer. I tried all these things. If anybody can help me, blah, 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 blah. Right? Then what's your public profile? You go, well, this guy's an idiot. Lost a bunch of money. He's actually famous for being an idiot. Huh. That's pretty neat. All right. What's the likelihood he's committing fraud here? Well, possible. But man, he's going through a lot of trouble just to like hide one transaction that we're going to be able to pick up as soon as it starts moving. So who knows? And if it moves and it ends up getting traced back to him, then we're going to say, oh, what a clever ruse there, Mr. Ruse guy. But if it never moves that way, or it never moves in a way that can be traceable to you, then it's like, well, this guy just lost a bunch of Bitcoin like an idiot. And especially if you treat those funds like a hacker would, whereas you take those funds, you route them to something and then route them to something else and then cash it out somewhere or something like that, or just make it look like you're trying to obscure the chain after it leaves you, then it's like, oh, then you start creating a more plausible story narrative around why did those funds move and what happened to them to you as far as you're concerned. They were stable in this address where I was stacking for years and years and years. They got shifted to this address and now they went all around this weird circuit and I don't have anything. You go, oh, that plausibly links more to fraud and user error than deliberate obfuscation of, beneficial ownership and control, versus I routed this swap thing. The swap thing went here, here, and here. And then now I may or may not have Bitcoin, but I stopped reporting it. Wait, so hold on a second. You said before that you had $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, and then it moved to this exchange, and now you don't have any Bitcoin anymore? That doesn't seem right. That sounds to me like you're trying to hide the fact that you had Bitcoin. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. I don't know what the best, let's say you're sitting on a bunch of KYC Bitcoin and you'd like to get less legible one way or another, or, whatever. Not financial or life advice here, but just thinking of tools people employ when they think about these kinds of things. Maybe it's a combination of, you make a report, you lost it and all that, but then those wallets are watched or whatever. And so if they ever move back to something
tied to you,
it goes back to you.
You're burned.
Whereas if you cross that non-KYC gap and it disappears into Lightning or Liquid or whatever, it's gone. It's gone. That was the hack. That's what you reported. I guess it went where? Liquid?
Yeah.
I don't use Liquid.
Yeah.
But then you have another Bitcoin wallet where some Bitcoin arrived, and that's nobody's wallet, but that's your wallet.
Right. Well, I mean, that's sort of the thing is like these methods of obfuscation that argue strongly in favor of don't have KYC Bitcoin. Or if you're going to use KYC Bitcoin, just use it according to the rules, because when you start trying to tinker with it, when you start trying to strip it from the thing you've already submitted to, that's when you're running into problems, right? Like if you go, well, I bought all my Bitcoin on Kraken. You go, well, everybody knows where your Bitcoin is, who owns it, period. End of story. Like there's no like, oh, well, I'll just tornado cash it and then no one will know that I bought cocaine this week. Like they're going to go, well, you move funds, right? Yeah, we're tracking that. Yeah. Where do these funds go? I don't know. Like, well, then if you don't know, then why'd you send it to Tornado? And they go, I mean, you're already bundled up there. But if you start from the principle of like, well, I'm into Bitcoin, I want to maintain my exposure to Bitcoin, and I accept that I'm part of a fiat system that I'm not necessarily going to get to escape anytime soon, you can take self-custody of that still. They'll know that you have it, but that doesn't change your ownership of it. That doesn't change its sovereign power that you possess. They can go, you may know I own this property, but you can't take it. I don't care what you say. And that's a different bargaining chip, right?
Yeah.
And likewise, while you're doing that, I think you should also be considering like stacking things like non-KYC Bitcoin and finding ways to do that. So you have two stacks. So even if it does come down to some sort of thing where you're compelled disclosure, you're compelled to put up, like a threat of death or something to give up that Bitcoin that you have. The neat thing is that you got exposed to the Bitcoin ecosystem and you are operating in a way that is where you are now aware of the problems that you're confronted with from the fiat system more broadly, and you have a way to mitigate some of that. Mm-hmm. Now that you are in possession of that knowledge, you should probably endeavor to make the rest of your stacking not be associated with that identity, if possible, And yeah, the paint chips with the Green River thing, Johnny, I'm glad you brought that up, because the thing I thought was funny is like when you mentioned paint chips and all that kind of stuff, like it's those kind of examples that get held up as like, this is what cops do. And it's like, no, that's what they happened to do that one time that might have sort of kind of worked because of very specific reasons in that situation. But it traces back to like the forensic shows and stuff like that. I just saw your comment, but the narrative that they do is like, the hot scientist in the laboratory at the police laboratory that's all lit in neon and has brick facing walls uncovers the one critical piece of evidence. It's a hair that just happens to be tied to a thing, and that's how they can wrap up the whole case, and Mark Harmon can solve the whole problem by the end of the episode, by the end of the fifth commercial break.
We were joking about that at work a week ago about some case where, those shows, interesting as they are, and even Forensic Files, where it's like literal cases that literally, yes, they did happen. They did do this science. They had to like learn new things and create new technologies and test that science and all these things. It's very fascinating. And there's a public perception that like, oh, you guys can just do that, right? And exactly. You do not understand that like even just the most basic dumb results from a DNA test or results from a Dewey alcohol level kit, they have to go to this one centralized state lab, and it takes months. It takes months. And just to get like, do we have a DNA read on this thing? Right. Did you get alcohol levels from that thing?
Right.
And it's months. And meanwhile, like court is waiting, and it's like continuance. And in bad cases, it's like, here's a potentially, I mean, not for like a Dewey or something else, but like for sometimes there are people that may not be very safe people, and we're waiting on some piece of evidence that it's like, we'd call the state lab and it's like, is this ready yet? We have a homicide. We have a homicide.
Sweet Biddy. Hi, sorry. Just wanted to say hi.
Hi, Sweet Biddy. We have a homicide from like 3 years ago, and now it was a little more involved and messy, but I think the lab's still working on that. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. The wheels of that justice grind so slowly and not even that finely, just like basic results. But meanwhile, it's like, well, that hot lab gal was doing it all night last night.
Yeah.
Right.
She fixed it. Like she was in the middle of eating a bagel and she went, aha, cream cheese is the key. Pulls out her microscope and looks and goes, yeah, see, this is the special bacteria that made this thing happen. And that's how we can tie it, because this is the kombucha killer. We've got him by the bacteria that he used to make his kombucha that he, it's like, oh my God, dude. Yeah. If only it worked that way. Right. But like you said, it's a grind, dude. Like they assign it a barcode. It goes off to some lab. The lab has got just like stacks of these barcodes, and they're just like, some technician somewhere, probably not a very highly paid technician at that, is probably just sitting there grinding away, just subjecting it to the thing, handling the evidence within, boundaries. But it's like, if the entire justice apparatus was repurposed to favor that step and get away from like the process step and the, like the endless like prosecution based on, like just hammering people and pushing people towards an outcome and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think we would do probably a lot better job of like catching the really serious people, and we'd probably have a lot more sane way of dealing with the low level like people. Because right now, what they do is they sweep up all the low level people, assign them high level categorization, and then butt them away in a warehouse somewhere. And then they run around and do victory laps about how much they're fighting crime. Meanwhile, the sophisticated actors, the complex cases, the dense cases, all that kind of stuff gets swept aside. But those are the ones that are most important, right? Like, because some criddler came and stole your lawnmower, and it turns out to be a pattern of crime that made him a felon because he stole 50 lawnmowers that year, is less of a social impact than some guy who's like serial raping or doing mass murders or committing murder at all. Or, like these things that are high risk but hard to find. But we focus on these low-level things because they look better for the prosecutor, the court system, the justice system writ large. We're fighting crime. Look how many people we've locked up. Versus, well, we let a lot of this kind of stuff sort of simmer out there, and we kind of rely more on cops just beating the hell out of people in the back alley to keep that tamped down, and like local neighborhoods and things like that. Like we try and encourage neighborhoods so people can walk out and go, hey, you don't look like you belong here. You're grabbing that little girl. Why is that little girl screaming? And so like the butcher comes out and the lady's like looking from her window, and the moving guy is putting down the furniture and just watching. Like, that's the real policing, right? It's not like call the cops. There's some girl screaming and they drove off in a van, right? But that's sort of the culture we're creating right now. So, yeah.
and it's a big world. There's a lot of shit goes on. Like people don't even know the volume of it really. And so then the ones that you hear about are the ones that, had enough evidence to create information about and present or to start with. It was like 10 years ago, I heard some stat that, the FBI was tracking 100 active serial killers, and that's it. I mean, you just multiply that by 10 is probably the number of people that they just don't really have a sense about, but it's happening.
Right.
But there were 10, and they've isolated them to individuals that are active, that work in this area, and there's enough connection points to say, like, this is probably a person doing all of this. We just have no idea, like, who it is. They don't have much on it.
Yeah.
And it's just weird to think about. Like, it's not like, oh, Manson, Bundy, pick your, John Wayne Gacy, whatever it was. There's these handful that we know as think of like, oh, these are the Jack the Rippers. Right. The thing is, they are around.
Yeah.
We just don't know who and how and why and what. Just like after stuff happens, we try to pick up enough pieces to connect it to something. And now DNA has helped a lot. Fingerprints helped a lot. Other forensic things are helping. But that process itself is, oh, we got another one. Okay, collect all the evidence, send it to the lab. We might have a bunch of results that mean something together in months.
Yeah. Well, but that's exactly it, right? I mean, like, imagine if all the resources that they currently devote to, like, scooping up criddlers that are stealing lawnmowers and people that are bonking each other on the head and people getting in fist fights and people breaking up, smashing up things and all that kind of, just general disorder gets focused on tightly because it's easy to fix, right? You just go, oh, well, who did this? Well, the guy who's on camera throwing a brick through the window, that's who did it. Oh, really? Who is he? Well, he's the guy that everybody in the neighborhood knows because he always wears that hat. So he's super easy to identify. Oh, cool. Can we button him up for some serious felony crimes here? Yeah. Great. So we get clearance rates. Can we tie him to all the other vandalism in the area for the last year or so? Plausibly. Yeah. Okay. Can we use that as a lever to go, hey, if you plead guilty to these 10, we'll knock this down to this. Do you agree? And they go, yeah, sure. I didn't have anything to do with that. Just, do you agree that to say this? And they go, well, what's my alternative? You're going to do 20 years. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I did all of that. Yeah, that's me. 100%. I broke all those windows and broke into all those stores. I did all those things. So give me my 2 years, please. And they go, no problem. Boop, boop, boop. So they kill two birds with one stone. They get to button up the guy who actually did the thing. They get their clearance rates way up. They go, oh, we just solved 10 burglaries right now. How? Because we found this one guy who was readily identifiable. Everybody knew, but it kind of fit the pattern with these other things. And he agreed to take the fall so we could get our clearance rates. I mean, this is all very cynical, but it is a thing that occurs, so.
Well, our mutual friend would talk about that kind of case solving in AML efforts. Where they KYC and AML and all this stuff, where they'd have these, they'd do victory laps around a case they solved and say, see, this is why we KYC. We caught this ring of crypto fraudsters. It's like, okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, all the rest of us are have to function under KYC and AY.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, like CZ is still walking around in the world. Binance still exists, right? Like all these exchanges still exist. They were all violating securities laws, doing all kinds of crazy shit for years and years and years. They're all doing fine. They're all rich. But you caught this one guy, some kid who's doing bong rips in his basement in Idaho and figured out a crypto scam. You're like, we buttoned him up. Look at the power of KYC. And it's like, but what about Citibank? Because they were kind of doing that whole like drug trafficking, laundering, narco terrorism thing. Like, why is that okay?
Morgan, I mean, Epstein's banker is like, is he a hero? He
right. Yeah. So it's just institutional madness. I don't know.
The nature of large human systems, and so that's in our world of lots of rules and layers of effort put towards enforcing rules. Think about huge swaths of the world where there are not these systems in place and people just do stuff.
Yeah.
Or areas of war-torn areas and stuff that happens. And there's no system in place doing much of anything other than individuals surviving day by day.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But anyway, crazy.
Chaos is a ladder. Yeah.
Chaos is a ladder.
Yeah. Chaos is a ladder. That was Littlefinger. Chaos from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, should we wrap up here? I know you probably got.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check out of the hotel room, and we managed to make it work. I'm traveling. Jamie Dimon and his cocaine and weapons ship. Well, that's the thing. It's like the cost of doing business. It's like you're in big, bad trouble again, month by month. What is that? More fines? Yep, we're going to fine you more. Okay, cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Pay these fines and just
keep doing it. Yeah. Find me harder. Yeah.
Cost of doing business in the criminal cartel of the money world.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, cool. Yeah, I do kind of have to wrap it up because we're on the road and we're in Idaho now, but crossing the border into Montana in about an hour.
Ooh, so, fun.
Heading east.
All right, shall we? 1.5 billion. Is that it? What's 1.5 billion among friends?
Yeah, that's affordable. The national debt. 39 trillion, heading to 40.
Yeah.
Heading to
some Bitcoin, people. Get you some Bitcoin.
Get some Bitcoin. Get out of the extraction.
Check out Vexel. It's a way to do non-KYC in-person exchange. Just FYI.
Vexel's good.
There's nothing illegal about buying property without going through a financial intermediary. That you are allowed to buy things still.
You can still buy property.
You can still buy property. I can go and buy something from Fritz and not have to tell anybody in the world. It's my business. It's private exchange. Not financial advice, but, if you're planning on the future, if you are a big fan of Bitcoins, you should probably have some Bitcoins that you can play with that nobody need know that you have, aside from the person you're dealing with. And maybe then you could put on a Biden mask and get a Biden double to show up for you. Be like, hi, I'm here to do some non-KYC Bitcoin exchange with you. Vexel.
That's what I need. And Bull Bitcoin also. They I was just looking it up. Oops, hold on a second. When I was talking to Gigi Thursday.
Oh, Gigi's great. I love that guy. He's awesome. We had a really nice chat in Prague. Like, we were just hanging out. He came and sat down at the table. I was just sitting there sipping a coffee, and we got to talking. And he invited me on the show. I guess you've been on the show now, but super, super nice guy, isn't he? Just really thoughtful.
Yeah, really nice. So he works for Bull Bitcoin now. Bull Bitcoin, you can buy no KYC. I mean, now they have to do certain compliance things themselves, but the Bitcoin you get, he was telling me about how they hold their Bitcoin and supply their Bitcoin, but they're pretty based as well.
If you're interfacing with monitored rails, you are KYC'd on some level.
Yeah, at some level, it's hard to escape those rails.
Like this, I don't know how they are framing it this way. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I see get it on Google Play and Apple Store, and I go, well, that doesn't sound like. I'm pretty sure you need to sign up for those services, and I'm pretty sure you need to sign up to use those services, especially if it's involving money. In fact, I guarantee it is. So how you don't have to link an account? I don't know. I'd be interested to see how that works, but I'm dubious of anything that is under central authority and central control or centrally managed somehow and still avoids mandatory KYC reporting that is pervasive and required by law worldwide. So,
yeah, I know it's like it is through their app, but sort of like the bolts thing I brought up, they allow for these atomic swaps, so you can move it around, say like the liquid or other layers, and it's. I guess there's layers to the KYC aspect to all this, but this is an easy route to better.
That's sort of my caution about the whole thing is I am deeply versed in the AML world, and that is not something you want to tinker with willy-nilly. Like, if you are of a mind that you want to obscure beneficial ownership and control of an asset, like that you're already risking much, and you have very, very steep downsides. So I would say if you are oriented towards that direction, your safest bet is to just avoid those rails to begin with, because that is perfectly legitimate as best I can tell. That's not advice. That's just from my understanding of things. And secondarily, if you already have it on those rails, you either need to separate yourself from those rails via the system that you acquired them on, and then go access a different way, or you but even then, like if you had $100,000 of Bitcoin on Kraken, you moved it to a cold wallet and you move it back to Kraken and sell it $100,000, you're still going to have to account for where that money went on some level. But you don't have to report that if you go sell it. If you go buy something, like you don't have to tell anybody that you don't have $100,000 anymore. And it's pretty easy. It's pretty plausible to say, well, I pissed it away on hookers and beer. You go, didn't you cash all this money out? Yeah. And I spent it on what? Hookers and beer, baby. I had a great year, man. That was fun. Woo. Yeah. Almost gave myself a heart attack, but meanwhile you could have, gone through Vexel. But at that point it's up to you. But if you start on the rails, you can't escape the rails, or at least you can try and escape the rails, but you leave a bigger trail that's more dangerous for you if that's your goal. So I am dubious of ideas that orient in that direction across the board. Whether or not they're successful or not, I don't know. Whether or not they're plausible or not, I don't know. What I can say is, like, people that just develop software to help people do that just got sent to prison for 5 years. So I would take that as a warning shot right there. If you don't believe what I say, or you think what I'm saying is suspect, or I'm not appreciating enough what people are working on, totally fair reading. And I would also say, well, there's other evidence that points to what I'm saying as well. Like, just be careful with that kind of stuff.
You've used Vexel. You found it.
I've never used Vexel in my life.
Oh, okay, good. Makes sense to me. I took a look at it, and I'm still kind of navigating it a little bit. I'm still learning. I haven't used it, but
what I can say is you got to compile it. If you have an iPhone, you can kind of bypass some of the restrictions on accessing that software. If you enable test flight mode, I've heard. I've never done that myself, and I would never do that just because I think it's risky. But that said, those seem to be the plausible pathways for an American user to access that service.
Yeah.
But you're violating a lot of things in doing so. Or you can just get yourself a European phone, sign up into a European service, and that is generally acceptable over there. So that's another option if you wanted to use something like that. But there are other ways to acquire non-KYC Bitcoin, including mining, things like that. Some of those are, if you go through a service like Simple Mining or whatever, you're going to be KYC'd on the input. Or at least they're going to have some account information on you and what you're receiving, because they have to. But there are other ways, like if you're running a solo miner, if you're like 100 Acres Ranch guy who's just spinning up like fucking crazy amount of miners, chances of hitting a block can go up pretty high depending on how much you're willing to invest in infrastructure. So, there's ways. Vexel, yeah, it's
VXL.
Vexel, yeah, Wexel.
What is this?
Drexel? What? Wasn't Drexel that character from True Romance? Yeah.
Vexel. I made you out of Bitcoin. Okay, so
on that note,
KYC, non KYC yourself, folks, and we will catch you next time.
Just be careful.
No advice anywhere in this podcast anywhere. So ever. All right.
Bye, everybody.
As a Bitcoiner, you know that taking self-custody is critically important. So get off paper and get yourself a MicroSeed at MicroSeed.io. MicroSeed is the best way to take self-custody. One single MicroSeed kit allows you to stamp as many seed phrases as you want. And you can fit all 12 or 24 words on one single washer. Get the kit and crank out all the keys you'll ever need forever. Go to MicroSeed.io and use promo code FRITZ to get 5% off the best seed stamping tool available.